And thanks for joining us again here on the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. I'm super psyched about today's guest. Unfortunately, it's not a coach, but fortunately, it's someone that is one of these behind the scenes characters that I talk about every once in a while. Someone who is involved in track and field, not on the coaching level. It touches your life if you're a track coach, trust me. So help me welcome today's guest from the NFHS, the Chief Marketing Officer, Mr. Mark Koski. Mark, how are you, sir?
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Hey, but don't offend me here because I have been a coach in track and field at the high school level. And we're going to talk about this past year, I was a middle school track and field coach. I know this is exactly what everyone wants to hear about. I'm going to tell you some stories a little later in the podcast. I can't wait.
Man, I do this selfishly just to learn things. And there it is, 30 seconds in. That's awesome, man. I love it. I love it. I love it. Hey, so Mark, let's maybe take a step back. You work for these alphabet soups, right? You have the NCAA, NFHS, USTFCCA. So maybe tell us the National Federation of High School. Some of us know what that is. Some of us think we know what that is. Some of us maybe have no idea. Tell us, what is the NFHS?
Well, no, it's a great question. And I tell you what, a lot of people say, hey, what is the NFHS? Give me kind of your elevator speech or whatever else, because they know of their state, high school athletic association, activity association within their state, like the IHSA, the Illinois High School Association in Illinois, where there's 51 of those state offices, every 50, all 50 states plus DC. But the NFHS is the governing body for high school sports and activities throughout the country. We formed 102 years ago. Actually, we're formed, surprisingly enough, from Midwest State High School Association. So they knew at the time that, hey, there needed to be some kind of governing body similar to like the NCAA in some ways. And so they formed the NFHS, and we have been proudly serving our member state associations, like I said, over 102 years now. And so phenomenal place to work, phenomenal place to be. And I tell you what, I love the high school business, and it's a dream to come work here each and every day.
I believe, if I remember correctly, first of all, if you guys don't know this, it's kind of funny. So the headquarters for the NFHS is in Indianapolis. The headquarters for the NCAA is in Indianapolis. In fact, when we go to visit, we're real close to Indianapolis. It's about a, 2.5 second, 5 second walk from door to door. But what I was getting at is, I believe, if I remember correct, because there's a member from the Hall of Fame museum that's right there, that the NCAA kind of was started because of the flying wedge for football. Like there was a safety concern and we needed a government body to help with the rules. Did the NFHS start with any kind of flying wedge type thing, or was it more of like, hey, we just have all these scattered bodies and rules, we need to help corral it together?
No, that's a great question. It's funny enough. So like I was mentioning earlier, when the Midwest states came together, they said we need to form some kind of body. And at that time, it was all about the idea to get rid of the national championships that were happening in basketball at the time. And so in the early 1900s, there was actually a national high school basketball championship that happened. There was happening every year in Chicago. And you would have teams from Arizona, Washington. I mean, literally, these kids would I can't imagine, they would probably be out of school for a month. Right. Traveling to Chicago, participating. And so it was important that you'd have a body that would, be kind of against national championships, because the NFHS's philosophy is multi-sport participation. First of all, we want everyone to be in track and field. I'm kidding. That's
no, we're with you. Keep going.
That's right. We'll go for it. But we want students to go from volleyball to basketball, to track and field, and baseball, and softball, and to every sport. Well, at the time, when you have a national championship, the unfortunate thing, most likely that student participant is not able to participate in the next sport, because you would have after the end of the season, it would take another 3 weeks. The sport was already off and moving. And so again, the NFHS, the main founding purpose of the NFHS at the time, of course, not only to write rules that we do, we published the rule books and established guidelines for medical and safety purposes. But the main purpose, was to have a body that was against these national championships. And that's still our philosophy today. I mean, we want multi-sport participation. We know things are different than they were 80 years ago. We totally get that. But if students can participate in more than one sport, obviously they see how coaching is different. They're just put into different scenarios. As we know, track and field, It's a phenomenal sport. What's great about it, you're not just on a basketball court for 60 minutes. You can go to a field event, or you can get to the track and so on. Well, it's kind of our philosophy with multi-sport. We want kids, to be a part of different teams, whether it's wins or losses. I mean, as we all know, sometimes losing is just as good as winning, because you're going to learn those benefits. And so we still have that philosophy to this day, and hopefully it's long term, because we want kids to participate in everything that they can.
It's interesting. You said, things are different now than where they were then, but here we're talking about 80 plus years ago, national championships and, single sport specialization. Like I would have thought that would have been a last 30, 40 year problem. And this is how it started back in the 1900s, if you will.
102 years old, our organization.
Wow.
So, and we've been, like I said, another main purpose is the writing of the rules. And so a lot of people know the NFHS, or our mark, because you looked at your annual rule book, and of course the safety measure is very important to us. Keeping the sound tradition of the sport. We don't want to totally, come in and change a sport that has been around again for 100 years. We want to keep those traditions alive and well, something that, why sports were founded, from the get-go. And so when we look at annually, we look at tweaking the sport rules. It's, mainly safety is a very important, or something that might help budget wise when it comes to schools. All those type of things. Our rules committees come together here in Indianapolis, and then ultimately spread it out to the 19,500 high schools in which we serve.
So the rules book and rules making, that part of it, like that's probably what most people might think of when they think of NFHS. What are some other things I know of, like the Hall of Fame that the NFHS has, the learning component, the coaches' education? Talk to us about some of the other aspects that NFHS is doing for our coaching body.
Yeah, definitely. NFHS Learn, which is our learning platform, that was actually established 16 years ago. And it was established because at the time when we were looking at who were coaching our student athletes, majority of those coaches were never formally trained. And I'll preface it this way: not that online course is the end all be all. However, it's much better, for coaches to take our online platform, online courses, versus just, hey, raising their hand and I'm going to coach you, Mike, as I was coached, good or bad, And so we established the NFHS Learning Center, which has over 85 courses. Majority of those are free, for coaches and parents and students to take to this day. And I tell you what, this is actually our hottest week. I mean, we have hundreds of thousands of coaches this week taking courses that are required from the state association, or the schools themselves require these courses, like a concussion course, what you need to know, first aid, safety courses, and so on. We're not the X's and O's of the game, in a sense. That's done kind of more at the coaching level, coaching clinics. This is more the administration side of things, to make sure that, hey, we have our 8 million student participants are there next year. Or the ultimate goal, how do we get those to climb? How do we get to 9 million student participants? And a lot of times, through our rules writing process, we'll have a chance to do that because we're looking at more participation opportunities for students.
So I'm a huge component of coaching education. We all are here at Gill Athletics. We literally believe, better educated coaches make better educated decisions. Where is that NFHS learning online? And we'll make sure we put it in the show notes as well. What's that?
Great question. So NFHS.org is, of course, is the NFHS site. And then you click on our NFHS Learning Center, or you can go to NFHSlearn.com. And so, they're great websites. Like I said, a ton of traffic this week for sure. But all throughout the course of the year, we've had, well over 1 million courses that are taken each and every year on the Learning Center. And again, it's a great way for coaches that have zero training to have some sort of training prior to working with these student participants. And I tell you what, coaches, they're not 14 to 18 years old usually. You know what I mean? And so to learn and understand what it's like to be 14 to 18-year-olds and the things that those students are dealing with. I think it's just eye-opening. It's very good, for all of our coaches, across this country, which there's about 1.6 million coaches throughout the high school landscape. And it's great for those coaches to understand, prior to, jumping on those fields and those tracks with those students.
1.6 million coaches. And I'm afraid our listenership here at the Gill Athletics Track and Field Connections podcast is not 1.6 million every episode. What the heck? That's a good thing. It means there's a big market that we're still need to capture out there for listenership, right?
We're going to get there. After I talk about my middle school coaching experience this year, I think we're going to get there, Mike.
That'll do it right there. Well, before we get to talk about you, Mark, and your amazing middle school coaching, and I know your amazing athletics when it comes to track and field. Tell us a little bit more. You're the chief marketing officer. So what does that mean for the NFHS? What do you do, Mark? What do you do for us here?
Yeah. So, I'm actually starting my 15th year on staff. Prior to moving here to Indianapolis, lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and worked for the New Mexico Activities Association, which is our state office in New Mexico. But when I took this job, like I mentioned, it was a dream job. Still to this day, it is. We have Mike, I think there's a bridge that walks over this little canal downtown Indianapolis where we park our cars, and I walk over that bridge. And every day, I just love my job, and it's a great job. And so it's all about obviously marketing the NFHS, what we do, our missions, our purpose, our goals. Because as mentioned, a lot of folks don't know who the NFHS is. And this is through this job, it allows me the opportunity to do that. And so, again, marketing the programs, marketing our coach education courses is important. We also have, national campaigns. We have one that we've done over the last 4 years called Become an Official, which is a national campaign because throughout the country, we're starting to have a decline in the overall number of officials. And so we want to increase that. We want to make sure that, hey, these freshman JV games, these JV meets go off just as they always have in the past. And so the only way to increase, which is our ultimate goal, to increase our 8 million student participants to get to that 9 million is to make sure that these games go off and these kids have these opportunities that they work all year long for. So anyway, it's all about, again, these national campaigns and the promotion, and then of course, trying to grow kind of in a sense, the NFHS brand, the NFHS logo, which has been an absolute joy over the last 15 years.
I love these themes, right? Multi-sport athletes. Anybody listening to this podcast, I guarantee you, is all about multi-sport, helping athletic development as we move on to in the high school level and as we move on, maybe possibly to the next level. Officials, that's an issue, right? Helping gain more officials for our sport, helping them become better educated. Safety, that's always going to be number one, whether it's rulemaking, whether it's manufacturing of equipment. I love those themes. Now, Mark, we've known each other for quite a while now in this role as chief marketing officer, but you kind of got bored, I guess, and you took on another job within the NFHS overall. So tell us the other part of your career here with the NFHS.
No, I appreciate you asking. So the NFHS, about 10 years ago, we were like, hey, what's a good way for us to get out our brand? What's a good way for these student participants to be shown, streamed or whatever? And so we created what's known as the NFHS network. And the NFHS network, literally, I'll never forget, January 4th, 2013, Bob Gardner, our former executive director, gets on stage at a national conference and says, hey, we're going to go ahead and start the NFHS network, and it's going to be streaming of every high school game throughout the country. Wow. And Mark Koski, that's your job. Let's go for it. And so anyways, we, over a 6-month period, we developed it's a kind of for-profit side of the NFHS. And it was a good way for state associations to make additional dollars and schools themselves. And so anyways, literally the NFHS network was formed, and it was, we partnered with Play On Sports, which is a company. It was a spinoff from Turner Broadcasting, and they're based out of Atlanta, and they're more kind of like our engine behind the NFHS network. I think we know schools and we know sports and student participants really well. They know technology really well. And so we formed the NFHS network, and to this day, it has been unbelievable in terms of, and let me give you some stats. I mean, literally this year alone, we will stream over 1 million high school sporting events on the NFHS network, and there's 2 million total events throughout the country. And so we're going to have right at half of the overall sporting events at the high school level will be on the NFHS network. And again, it was all about, not taking fans out of the stands. It literally is all about enhancing, those students that are participating, because all of our subscribers, Mike, are those usually from outside of the state. So people who can't make it to a meet, they can't make it to a particular game, they can, jump on the NFHS network for $10.99 a month. I understand there is a charge, but it's a 30-day subscription. You watch as much as you want. And I tell you what, it's been amazing. And so this gives, again, not only those freshmen, those junior varsity participants, but varsity participants, a way for them to be shown on a network. But most importantly, fans do not miss a play. They don't miss a meet now because they have the NFHS network to tune to.
So what I'm hearing is I'm a proud alumni of the great Eufaula, Alabama Tigers, and I now live in Illinois. So I could potentially watch all my games from my old high school, my alma mater.
That's exactly right. And so of the 19,500 high schools that are members through the NFHS network, the NFHS, through our state associations, 10,000 of those actually have all of their games on our platform. And so it's awesome. It's exciting, being there from day one and creating, not that we were real, in terms of NFHS network. And we looked at the locker room and all these different names for this thing. Ultimately, we're like, we need to get our brand out there. But people knew the NFHS through obviously writing the rules and the safety side of things. And so we formed the NFHS network. And like I said, it's been amazing for our states and our schools. And it's a way for actually schools to make dollars, because they make a percentage of the subscription dollars that come in, as well as all the advertising that happens on our network itself. That goes back to the schools themselves. And so I think it's been a win-win for high school athletics throughout the country.
And if I'm a high school football geek, which I'm a college football geek, so it's not that far off, does that mean I can also, are you limited to what you can watch? Meaning if I'm an alma mater is Eufaula High in Alabama, but I know there's the number one quarterback is at maybe like South Lake Carroll High School in Texas, I could catch a game for that individual as well. Or I just thought about this. What if I'm a college coach and I'm recruiting a male sprinter who is also playing high school football? I can catch his game and then maybe use that as far as my recruiting. Hey, saw you catch 100 yards, Johnny, on the NFHS network. That's all possible as well?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So for your $10.99 subscription, 30 days, watch as much as you want, cross borders, cross country. You also can look at the past 8 years of all of our coverage. So every game that we've ever produced on the NFHS network is on there for archivable purposes. And you have that opportunity to watch that action. And it's interesting, over this last year, Mike, we've had a lot of people say, oh man, I bet this pandemic has been really good for the network. Here's the thing, we want fans and stands, because that's what the high school model is. When a community comes together and they cheer on their red and blue team or whoever it may be on a Friday night, or at that Tuesday volleyball game, or go to that, that great tri-meet, all of that is so important. And that's what we want to show. We want to show on the NFHS network fans having a great time, cheering on their team, win or lose, they're still there supporting. That's important to us. And so even though we've had, over this last year, an uptick of number of schools overall that have joined, our goal is to get, again, those grandparents, aunts and uncles, those service folks that are overseas and they don't have a chance to, to watch their son or daughter. Now they have a chance through the NFHS network, to watch it, every play, every pitch.
That's awesome. He is the chief marketing officer, folks. So, he was going to make his pitch in there. He's trying to make it sound, and it is maybe better than Netflix. Netflix is $14 or something now, right? It's $11, man. I love it.
We're undercutting Netflix. That's for sure.
Take that, Reed Hastings. But might not want to poke him too much. It is Reed Hastings. He could take it all over, man. He's Ted Turner of the over the top transitions. So another reason we wanted to have you on the show this month, Mark, is we had kind of a big announcement for something that's been going on for a while, but it's back and going even stronger. I'm actually going to throw it to you to make the announcement, because you're so much better at this. You got chief in your title. I tell you what, we are just beyond excited to announce our extended partnership with Gill Athletics. We have been
partners with Gill Athletics for between 6 and 9 years, I think, or whatever else. But it's been a number of years, and we've just extended that partnership for another 3 years. When the NFHS looks to partner with brands, one thing we want to make sure that we partner with the leader. There's no question. I mean, we feel that the NFHS, we don't really have any competitors from the NFHS side. It's not in our world. And so when we partner with a brand and we recommend brands, so to speak, to the particular schools and schools, we want to make sure, hey, it's going to be a company that's going to fulfill their end of the bargain, and work with coaches, make sure they get the products out there, as well as it's going to be good, for the safety side of things. And so it was a no-brainer to make sure that, hey, we partner up again. Obviously, Gill Athletics is the leader, and we want to make sure that we represent that, and we have a good logo lock with their logo, our logo together, and it looks great.
Well, ditto to everything you just said there, Mark. We've worked with the NFHS for, decades now, as far as working with your rules editors and, some of the great directors that you've had there and such, your predecessor. And so when you came on board and approached us about making it, I don't want to call it official, but making it formal, maybe that's the right word to it. It was also like, for us, it was like, well, we already have a relationship. Oh, but wait a minute, this is a way to help, the grassroots of track and field. Track and field, as you well know, Mark, is the number one, when you combine boys and girls on the high school level, the number one participatory sport. And I think a big part of that is that also allows it on the college level. When it's added together, the boys, the men and the women on the college level, it's the number one participatory sport. I don't think that happens on the college level if it doesn't happen on the high school level. And to me, it's an important part of the NFHS. I think it's part of the whole system that I don't think Team USA does as well at Olympics and world champs and world records if we don't have our high school coaches and our high school teams at it every day. So this was a way for us to, we like to say that we're grassroots and we care about the sport, and that's what's important to us. Well, this was a way for us to kind of put our money where our mouth is and support the NFHS to help with all these great, the NFHS learning and the rule books and the safety and, growing the sport and multi-sport. We're that's a big part. We love that aspect as well. So, it was kind of a no-brainer, like, man, what a great organization to be a part of. And we're just so proud to be a part of that, and so proud and happy to continue this relationship, at least until you and I are either fired or retired. I don't know which one, Mark. For guys like me, you never know which one's coming first, man.
I tell you what, no, and that was some of the deal in terms of the relationship that we formed just kind of personally. It's so important, I think, in these relationships between companies and organizations or whatever else. Because hey, this goes beyond what's on a contract or formalized or whatever else. So we want to make sure. To your point, I like what you stated, that track and field is the most participated sport at the high school level. And what's great about anytime you shoot, all of us, you can always ask, where'd you go to high school? We all pretty much went to high school somewhere. You know what I mean? So that's a common feature there, and part of a conversation. But USA Track and Field, they did super well. All those participants were student athletes at some on some track near you, so to speak. And I tell you what, it's part of what we do. We love to see individuals go to college, obviously pro, that's great. Our focus is usually on that 99% of those that don't. They go on to just be great family members and community members and lifelong positive citizens. But I tell you what, we definitely cheer them on when they do go on to have those medals and participate for our country. It's a great thing.
And you are representing the NFHS for us today, but I got to give a shout out to the Julies and Shanes. The NFHS is no one person, trust me, and Mark does a lot, but let me tell you what, there's a team on Mark's team. There's a team for the rules editors, the executive director. It shames me. I cannot remember the lady when I walk into the office. She's always there smiling and greeting.
Linda. She's the heartbeat of this office.
Love Linda. Shout out to Linda, because when you walk in, you are welcomed right off the bat. She is awesome right there. So just love everybody. You guys do a great job and appreciate everything that you do for the literally thousands of track programs and other sport programs across the country.
So very much, and real quick, Mike. So, the NFHS, a lot of people think, oh, you must be, it's just huge organization. We've got 41 staff members, and so we're fairly small. Our brother and sister next door, the NCAA, they have 550 staff members. So, quite small. And I tell you what, it's just a small, mighty staff, being that, we have 19,500 high schools that we help, obviously try to bring the best out of. Ultimately, long-term is our goal.
That's I love that adjective, mighty. That's what I think of your all the team members there. They're just so mighty and strong and passionate, guys and gals that are listening. These people that are working for NFHS, let me tell you what, they are in it. They are in it for the right reasons. Mark, let's get to know you a little bit better, because one of the other reasons that I love our relationship personally, Mike and Mark, and then also Gill and the NFHS, is the authenticity side of it, right? We talk about striving for authenticity over perfection. It's just so important to me. And what I love about our relationship with Mark is, so he, reached out and broached this relationship between, the world's largest track equipment manufacturer, blah, 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 and the great NFHS, but he's also a track guy. That's maybe the coolest part about him. I knew him as an athlete, but it sounds like there's more to it. So you talk about growing up in an amazing track state, by the way. New Mexico is, every time I learn more about New Mexico, it just blows me away of the coaches and athletes that have come from there. Give us a little bit about your background as it relates to track and field.
No, thank you. And so, had the opportunity to, actually, I was born in Anchorage, Alaska. I'm going to take you back from day one, but born in Anchorage, Alaska, part of a military family. So 8 years old, we ended up moving to Dayton, Ohio. But 8th grade year, we moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico. My parents had the opportunity to either go to Washington, D.C., Albuquerque, New Mexico, or Salt Lake City, and they chose Albuquerque for some reason. Must have been because of the track and field blood.
Exactly.
Track and fields are in our blood for the family, for sure. And so, anyways, had the chance to get to Albuquerque, New Mexico. Went to Highland High School, and at the time, Mark Henry was the football coach and assistant track and field coach with Gary Sanchez was the head track and field coach at Highland. And Gary's father, longtime Henry Sanchez, was a track and field coach at Highland High School, number of championships. But literally, one of the reasons we picked Highland High School was because of Mark Henry and Gary Sanchez. They were phenomenal coaches that literally, we talk about, they put all into it at all times. And so had the chance to football, basketball, track and field. Track and field by far was definitely my sport. Participated in them all, but really track and field is really what I loved. And so.
Now, you're not going to hang up here and get on a football podcast and tell them how football was your number one sport or anything. Are you being genuine that track was number one for you?
Chief marketing officer, of course. No. No, seriously, track and field is my love by far. And just like, so anyway, so participating in high school, obviously in many different events. Highland was real successful in terms of the school itself, and had a good just demographic, very diverse, and always has been, and just loved that school. So after Highland, had the chance to compete for the University of New Mexico, and wild enough, eventually, Mark Henry ended up with his brother. Ended up being co-head coaches at the University of New Mexico for track and field as well eventually. But I missed them. There was a 5-year period during when I was competing. They weren't there, and they came down. I think they didn't want to, come and have to coach me again. That 4 years at Highland was way too many.
They're like, when does he graduate? Okay, that's when we'll start.
Okay. Now I'll take that job. But no, so I go back to just real quick with Mark Henry. Coach Henry was, of course, we all know Pat Henry, of course, is, how legendary he is in the sport, and but the Henry brothers as a whole, just amazing. So, that's, early in high school is when I decided, hey, I wanted to be a coach. And that was my ultimate goal and dream, is to be a track and field coach, and had that opportunity. And so anyways, after University of Mexico, physical education teacher and coach, and had the opportunity to actually coach. I was a varsity football and track and field coach at Manzano High School in Albuquerque, which was a rival to Highland, surprisingly enough. But the Coach Henry and Coach Sanchez, they weren't leaving Highland anytime soon, and so I had had to try to go rival them. Well, I'm sure they outcoached me every time that we coached against each other, but it was great. It was great. So anyways, went and I was a teacher coach for a few years, 4 years at Manzano High School, and then eventually had the opportunity to participate or to move to the New Mexico Activities Association and so on. So that gives you something there.
I'm always amazed. I started traveling into New Mexico by invitation of Spencer, and I always mess up his last name, Spencer Sealshot. Yeah.
You better believe it. He was amazing, that guy.
Amazing, right? He invited me out to the New Mexico Track Coaches Association to speak. And then I started kind of learning, like I looked at the Hall of Fame for New Mexico Track Association, and you see guys like Mario Satania, obviously the Henry brothers, everything they've done. I know I'm going to miss everybody. Oh gosh, who was my decathlete that went to Duke? The guy, I love him.
Yeah. He was at Academy. I'm going to think. Yes.
I know he's listening, or at least listeners right now are yelling his name, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. That's where the old age, the brain just leaves me. I'm gonna get him on Twitter right now after we get done and be like, hey man, I'm so sorry I butchered. So sorry I messed it up. But I mean, just great.
Alex Beach. Yeah. Right? Alex Beach.
No, we're close though.
Curtis Beach.
There it is. There you
go. Curtis Beach.
I was like, we're close.
That individual, teams that I coach, obviously, yes, I mean, unbelievable. What an athlete. But again, Mario Satania, my brother was from Highland as well, and he won the discus and third in the high jump and shot put. But anyway, so my point is to say that is Mario 1991 at the state championship. That was kind of during his tenure. I mean, of course, phenomenal decathlete. These guys winning everything, and those 5 events that you can participate in New Mexico. There was 5 golds around that Mario's neck for sure. Phenomenal.
I got to coach at Mississippi State with another awesome coach named Keith Powell, who was a decathlete at LSU with Mario. And Keith would tell us, like, Mario was the stud, so they would throw everything at me to see if it would break me or hurt me, and then they would do it with I was Mario's guinea pig essentially at LSU. But Keith went on to have a phenomenal college coaching career, and now coaches middle school and high school. His beautiful wife Angela does an amazing job. Well, Mark, so we got to end this on we've never had a middle school track coach on the podcast. We've had high school, D1, D2, D3, NAIA, JUCO, professional, but I have been amiss. I've not had a middle school track coach. Tell me about this experience.
I tell you what, so this last year, had the opportunity. I mean, I'm going to kind of take you back. So a couple of years ago, my wife and I, we've got 2 sons and a daughter. And so 2 years ago, I'm sitting at my son's sixth grade track and field meet. I'm sitting there just like, why are they doing it this way? Why are they doing it? I mean, come on. I mean, they need to do it this way. As when I was at the head coach at Manzano High School, they need to do it this way. It's the best way. My wife says, well, if you're going to say it, you better step up. And so sure enough, she called me out. And this year I talked to the athletic director at Creekside Middle School, which is in Carmel, Indiana, north side of Indianapolis. And he says, well, I guess if you're going to donate money, I'll take you. I'm kidding. No, anyway, so I'm only kidding about that. But I was the sprint coach and one of the coaches on staff. And I tell you what, for me, it's always been about participation, whether that's in the job that I'm in today or as a coach. And so when I was at Manzano High School, we had 130 boys on our track and field team. And it was massive. It was huge. And what it's all about, again, I don't care if you can run around the track without stopping. You know what I mean? If you're out there, as we know, in the great sport of track and field, there's something for you. And so, I was a part of the program this year. And I tell you what, the Creekside Middle School track and field team won county over 12 different teams. And I tell you what, there wasn't a greater accomplishment, so to speak, that I've had in life than being a part of that and being able to, hug my 8th grade son at the end of that, as he finally says he's a champion, or whatever else. And it's good stuff. Again, we had a lot of student participation, a lot of student participants on that team. And my goal is I want to make sure all those 8th graders that were part of that, hey, they're going to high school and they're participating. Those 6th graders, those 7th graders, as well as they bring 3 of their best friends out. And so how can we get that team that was over 100, kids on it this year? How can we get it to 200? And that's the ultimate goal.
I love the see a need, fill a need attitude right there of like, hey, they need some help here. Well, I can either sit in the stands and gripe, or I can step up. And what I love mostly about that, Mark, is the impact that you had right where you are. We talk a lot of coaches around the country, and sometimes we talk about, I felt like I wanted to lead a Division I school because that's the most important. I'm doing air quotes there, but when people look at where their feet are right now, there are people in that circle that need help, that need volunteers, that need coaches, that need mentors, that need good role models. And the lives that you affected on this 8th grade, this middle school track team, they get amplified. Those kids show leadership to other kids. They show compassion and empathy in the things that they learned how to be coached and how to coach to other people. And that just amplifies infinitely. And it's the real magical thing about coaching and the positive power of a coach doing what they do right where they are right now. Love that vision of you and your son and the kids. And that's awesome.
What's the quote they say for coaches that, coach has more influence on an individual every day than most people do in a lifetime, and to me, that says it, that says it right there. And again, that's why I'm in this coaching, in a sense, this coaching profession, that I'm in, and I've loved it from day one. But, it came because of, Coach Henry and Coach Sanchez in high school. And I was like, I want to be like them, I want to be like them. And eventually, it's worked me up, obviously to this level. And the one thing that I not regret, but it's kind of said every day, I don't have that interaction with the student participant like a coach does every day. Sure, I received, when I was coaching the middle school level for 3 or 4 months, which I love that, but hey, I'm not in the grassroots or whatever else, but we're trying to make sure that, hey, the things that we do on a national level, it does have that impact to those 8 million student participants throughout this country. And I tell you what, to this day, there's no greater profession to be a part of. High school sports and performing arts is important for us.
I would agree and echo that, Mark. As a former coach myself, I struggled when I came to this side of it's like, man, every day at 2:00, I was supposed to be outside in the sand pit, right, helping kids. And then, the career got good when I flipped my mentality. It was like, oh, wait a minute, I'm actually supporting, loving, growing coaches, the biggest impact that young people have on a daily basis. I'm helping them do their job better, easier, simpler, which means I am affecting kids just in a different way. I'm not actually telling them how to jump farther anymore or run faster. And it's probably better that way, to be real.
That's good. No, I agree. Anyway, so I just, hey, love where I work. It's so important, as our kids are starting to look at what their profession is, as long as it's something that they love each and every day and love coming to work. And like I said, I walk over that bridge here in Indianapolis to this office every day. It's just seriously such a blessing to be able to work for students.
Our motto is we empower coaches with innovative equipment. And to do that, we love our relationship with you and your entire team, the entire building, past people that have worked for NFHS, future people, what selfless leaders, servant leadership you guys show on a daily basis. And so we're just so thankful to keep going with our relationship and super excited about 2021-22 season, man. It's going to be amazing. This is going to be a season to remember for all the sports that are out there.
It really is. And we hope our participation numbers drastically increase, because people want to be part of those, as well as the fans increase. They come back and they're supporting those high school teams and those coaches and those officials. I tell you what, there's a place for everyone, within high school sports. Whether you're a fan or the official we talked about, that coach, that volunteer coach, someone raking pits, someone putting those hurdles up. I mean, as you know, there's a lot of jobs when it comes to track and field. And so, hey, we want everybody to be a part of that. And there's no better seat in the house, so to speak, than being a part of the action on that track somewhere.
Amen. Amen. Man, Mark, thank you so much. I always say the most valuable thing that you can give me is time. And so I appreciate you visiting with us today and giving us background on the NFHS, a super important organization in our sport, but also in all of our sports and our athletic departments. Talking about our agreement, which I'm just so proud, to be Gill and NFHS together. It just makes sense. It's peanut butter and jelly, baby. It just makes sense. And then to learn more about you, Mark. I mean, I'm always, as we continue our relationship, it's just great to just showcase what you have done and continue to do for our sport. So thank you so much for being here today, Mark.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Thanks for you and your team for seeing what the NFHS is all about and helping us amplify our brand as well. Again, all about that education and safety and most important, participation. So appreciate the time today. It was a lot of fun.
It's awesome, man. We'll keep moving forward. That's the goal, getting better every day. And so today's goal was to bring value to you, listener. I hope today's stories here with Mark helped you kind of understand maybe what the NFHS is. Maybe it helped you understand some maybe other positions and slots that you can help fill with value, from officials, safety, volunteer, being in the stands. That's important as well, and supporting maybe your local high school and middle school teams as well. So thanks for being here today. If you received value, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that maybe someone in your network would also receive value. So share it, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, whatever you crazy cats are doing nowadays with social media. I'm a good old email and text message guy, so you can share it that way too. And join us next week and we'll connect you again with another awesome, amazing track and field coach. Have a good one, guys.